Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
What is driving this ambitious initiative where we are seeing a trajectory where Kenyans are being overtaxed? Why did we get here to the extent now that it's taxation after taxation? When we think we are done with the housing levy, tunasikia tuko na chief. Before we are settled on the chief, tunasikia kuna motor vehicle. Hii list itafika wapi? So with the members of parliament seated here, I think is an opportunity for you to get to know what Wanjiko is saying and represent us effectively. Failure to which we might be forced to go back to the other option of exercising this authority directly. This time around we are saying, kama ni mbaya ni mbaya.
You can shout your word. I am the finance bill. We're here because of me. You don't want me. As we've heard, I'm Janice Ngombalu, the country director for Christian Aid. We have been told that this journey will continue until we reach to 22%, 25%. It means we haven't started the journey. We are yet to get to a point where Kenyans will be taxed. Is that the journey that we are seeking for? How will that journey look like? What will be our inputs as citizens as we get there? We're already seeing the issues that are coming across. From 2021, we've seen the impact. From 2023, last financial bill, and the effect it has had on our people. So our question is, what are we going to do differently this year? Last year, we had the same engagements we have here. This year, again, we've had various engagements. Are we hoping to get anything different? Are we hoping and imagining that something will be done differently? This is what we are calling ourselves to action, to engage consultatively, but at the end of the day, continue being the voice of the voiceless. Our concern as a campaign is the pain that these tax proposals are going to inflict on our citizens. We have some serious concerns with a number of proposals. One of them is the VAT on basic commodities. It is clear we have seen the target on food, the target on agricultural products, the raw materials, and I think for us as a campaign, food is a basic right, and every citizen is entitled to affordable food. And some of these proposals really means that this right to food will be denied. And then we also had an issue with this popular motor vehicle tax. A lot has been said about it, but majorly, apart from what has been said, for us it is the injustice that it subjects the citizen to because of especially the cap, for example. So when it caps with a ceiling of 100,000, what does that mean? So who is the main target? So it shows that the low and the middle income citizen will end up paying the maximum, and then the rest will just pay a bare minimum. We have the other proposal on data, allowing KRA to have access to data. And again, when we talk about rights to privacy.
So I'm here to present on the manufacturing perspective on the Finance Bill 2024. As a background, when this government came into place, we sat down and agreed on certain principles and vision, whereby by then we said we're going to drive employment, we will say that you're going to drive investment, we're going to drive the value add output by the manufacturing sector, but all this seems to be breached by Finance Act 2023 and Finance Bill 2024. For instance, in 2022 we agreed that we are going to drive jobs from 352,000 jobs, formal employment, to 1 million jobs in the manufacturing sector. In terms of value addition, from about a trillion Kenya shillings to about 6 trillion Kenya shillings in a span of 7 years. But what we have seen, like now in the Economic Survey 2024, is that jobs have partly grown by only 10,000, from 352,000 to 363. In terms of value add output has only grown from 1 trillion to about 1 trillion, 1.2 trillion. And you can see our ambition is to get to 6 trillion. So that means we're not yet there. 2030 is approaching anytime soon. I want to give an impact analysis, because one thing that we don't do as a country, we don't do what is called fiscal impact assessment. And we have a very good example by NEMA. Before you are out to have a construction or something else that is coming up, you must carry out what is called environmental impact assessment. But you're not doing taxation impact assessment. But as an association, we have done one for Finance Act 2023. There is imposition of a duty at that 5%, which was 10%, but was taken to that 5%. And when you compare us as a country and the region, because we operate under what is called the custom union, we are free market. We trade without barriers. So Kenyan rate at that 5%, Uganda rate at 1.5%, Tanzanian rate at 26.5%, Rwanda at 1.9%, and Burundi at 0% on the paper that is used in making the T-sacks. So in this Finance Act 2023 and the legal notice for EAC, the imposition of that 5% duty caused the reduction of the cartons that we export from the country to the region and also globally. For instance, the carton that we export globally reduced from 590 metric. What we export to Tanzania dropped from 340 metric tons to 36 metric tons because, again, of a poor policy the government came up with in 2023. In terms of the T-sacks that we normally use in making our tea, the one that has a label, a string, and then we have the tea bag. That one, we have seen a reduction. We've seen an increment on importation rather than local production from 111 metric tons in 2022 to currently importing at 210 metric tons. You can see that it's an increment by about 97%. And what has it cost into the country? Because again of poor policy, it has cost 3 T-sacks manufacturers to shut down. We had 6 of them. And those 3 that are remaining are only operating at 10% level of capacity utilization. And one company that shut down, 60 jobs had to be lost. Why? Because we are now importing rather than making local production. We have lost even international markets. Like now we had a good contract with Forest Stewardship Council in Germany and France because of the cost component. We are no longer competitive as far as T-sack manufacturing is concerned. So we find our tea sector is affected and many other sectors are affected.
Many a times, when students go to the media to complain about these things or rather address their issues, when we go to the streets, it's always about hooliganism. It's always about you guys are idle. You guys just like chaos. You guys are not comfortable when there is peace in the area, right? When I was joining university, we used to pay a fee of 28,000 and we used to pay about 6,000 shillings for the hostels. And then fee was increased. The hostels are now 44,000 and the fee is 60,000. That means for a student to be admitted right now, you cannot go with less than 100,000. That is just the fee that you need to pay. You have not talked about food, you have not talked about the basic necessities that you need in the university, right? And you would think that by increasing the fee, maybe they would increase something something like health, or they think that they are decorating the name and trying to call it sponsorship. But The reality is that help has now been decreased by 10%, by about 6.3 billion, if I'm not wrong. So you increase the fee and you decrease the help. What happens, I'll tell you what happens because I am there, I am part of these students, and this is something that happens, yeah? So with having to pay for hostels by about 40,000, this is something that a student does not have. So what happens is that they go to the library and you will see a student and you think they are very, very hardworking to be studying in the library the whole night. But what they are doing is trying to find a place to sleep because they cannot afford the 40,000. Whenever there are very small demonstrations, probably intended to be very peaceful, that is where you will find people trying to pickpocket others. You will see people like Waishimiwa, they no longer even want to come to events at school because we will seriously tax them. Honorable Esther Basaris can attest to that. The reason is not because students are bad, it is because they are being pushed to levels that they have to go out of their way. Whatever we are doing by putting down education, by reducing the subsidies, we are even increasing the crime rates in this country. Whenever a student will be told that we will pay you 200 shillings to blog about against this person or to do this activity, would these students do that? Simply because you cannot afford school fees, you cannot afford the hostels, you cannot afford the food. Surprisingly, even the meals in the mess have increased. We used to buy food at cheap prices. Right now they are very, very expensive. I mean, the least the government can do is either to increase help or to stop increasing the school.
When I saw how they decreased or they've touched on agriculture, I felt like we still don't understand what agriculture means, bearing the fact that when we were in primary, we were doing it as a whole subject. If you want your country to deteriorate, to be sick, touch agriculture, touch education, touch on health, what they've done. I can never support anything that touches on health because it is paramount. You can imagine the other day, women were going to hospital and there were no tetanus vaccine. Then why do we teach on reproductive health? There are things that actually don't make sense. Maybe they've not done public participation to know what they need to touch on. If I was asked as Mama County Kisi what they need to increase on, honestly I will say alcohol because our children are dying. I will talk of cigarettes, sorry for those who use. But there are things that we can increase on taxes, and there are those that we should not touch. It is horrible. Go to Kisi University, you just pity those children. It's no longer a university. You don't give them appetite to work hard to join universities. Each day we keep demoralizing our learners, which is not good. When it will be brought before the floor of the house, of course we are going to play our part. And more that will be shared will represent you.
Once again, my name is Mary Emase, MP Teso South, and also the Vice Chair Budget and Appropriations. Yesterday I was saying now we must shift to revenue raising measures. As legislators, we are equally concerned about the finance bill. As the Budget Committee, our focus has been appropriate. We are just putting figures, estimated figures, and saying, as a country, we want to do A, B, C, D. But there is the other arm called the finance bill, which is going to give us direction on how this money has to be raised. So the finance bill was presented to the National Assembly, committed to the Finance Committee that has been reviewing it, that has subjected it to public participation, and I hope you have made presentations to the Committee on Finance. They will be making their recommendations and then they'll be tabling the report to Parliament. At that point, it will become the property of Parliament. It will now be available to all the members, and we are going to debate and we're going to make our recommendations. So, but the main concern, we are all concerned. Even as we were making recommendations on the budget, reducing figures here and there, the focus is on how do we shrink expenditure so that we minimize the deficit, so that we reduce the amount that we need to borrow to bridge the gap. Because we are alive to the plight of Kenyans. We are alive to the fact that we are living at a time when when the cost of living is still very high. If you talk to bankers, they will tell you the non-performing loans, the rate at which they are growing. So many Kenyans are never even to pay their loans.
80% of my voters live in slums. Deplorable situations, horrible houses. Actually, you can't even call them houses, sheds. All right, no water, no sanitation. Rape is the order of day. The first sexual experience of a girl in the slum will most likely be a defilement, not a romantic, aged, mature girl making a decision that I want to have sex. So for me, my main support for 2023 was I honestly, and I still do honestly believe that we need to have money for housing separated from the national cake so that we can focus on housing and deliver housing. I feel that the Association of Manufacturing, I think we're approaching this in a manner that doesn't save us. I think the most important thing for us to do with government, because we've got Can Invest looking for foreigners. We gave people in AGOA, we give them a lot, and they're creating jobs. And I don't know whether when you're giving us your figure of 352, whether it includes the ones in the export zone. It does. It includes everyone in the export zone. All right. So for me, I feel that we need, especially for the export market, when you were talking about the T-Sex, because you only mentioned the one industry, the T-Sex, where you said one factory is remaining. So I felt that in that respect, you'll need to have a situation where that industry is cushioned by government. Government needs to cushion for employment, but I saw the ever-readies of this world close down. I saw engineering, so many plants closed down over the last 10 years and jobs cut out because of new technology. We're not innovating fast enough as a manufacturing industry.
Yes, to all taxpayers, tusalimiane. At this juncture, this week, hakuna, whether it is the religious front, the cultural, hata ningekuwa naweza enda kwa sorcerers so that people understand what is happening in this country. We would for sure. We would for sure. Honorable Pasaris, we are being skinned. For the longest time, OKOA UCHUMI has been saying it is a haircut. Right? Landina, you and I go for haircuts. It is no longer a haircut. It is not grafting. This is something different. We must call out MPs. Opposition MPs, you cannot walk out of that house. You will vote until the last minute against eco levy, against motor vehicle levy, against increase in excise duty in banking, communication, because part of how we remain sane is we just call people in the village, we talk, oh, has the maize germinated? So the cost of calling cannot go up. The cost of sending money, which money? We are not making more money. So they are very specific clauses. But last year we were left out. MPs walked out, the others decided to vote with the president and the party. Here today, we have people from over 50 constituencies, led by Lisa Wanyanda, Esther Getarana. The students come to launch hizi barua zenye tunatumia MPs. After this, there will be caravans that will go to the 290 constituencies where we are writing to our MPs about the budget and the finance bill. Things that Kenyans can no longer allow not to be in the budget. We will not have increased cost of pads and lower cost of maternity. Like budget allocation on maternity,
when we are increasing the cost of pads and diapers. There has to be a balance. So at this point, allow me to call the students fraternity. And
while finance is crucial to sectors attached to the well-being and digital of the Kenyan people are being subjected to huge cuts, the executive finances remain intact. Kwanza na kuona ukifuatana na party leader hapa na kule. Lakini jameni, my MP Mark Muredhi Mwenje, you have not said a word, made enough noise about this. If all sectors are receiving cuts, why not the executive? Ama ni kazi kwa mwananchi, pesa kwa mwenye nchi. I will end by saying this. Youth and university students are the drivers of innovation and progress. Government should design the financial act bill that nurtures our potential and aspiration.
Government is increasing taxes to satisfy its appetite for borrowing and loans due. All this while the amount I pay does not in any way benefit me as a taxpayer, and the amount being borrowed is not being effectively utilized to enhance quality service delivery. Kusema ukweli, vitu kwa ground ni different. You seem to be happy about this. After extensive efforts to submit and present our proposals on the Finance Bill 2024, we now await the decision. This time, we hope our feedback is genuinely considered and our concerns duly addressed. Given the above, we request that you reject and vote against the proposal in the bill that seeks to alleviate our suffering when it is presented to the floor of the House. To Mheshimiwa Honorable Esther Passaris, your vote counts when voting for the finance bill. That one matters. So please vote in a manner that is in accordance with what this House has said today. Some of those proposed taxes include the motor vehicle tax, VAT on mkate, the agricultural raw materials, eco levy on plastic packaged goods, including diapers, increase in bank charges and mobile money transactions. All this defeats our pro-people better government program. We have done our part, and your vote stands between us and the punitive bill. Unlike the last financial year, I hope you have read the finance bill comprehensively this time for my sake, your employer. Mwenye nchi, that is. Do not forsake us, wananchi. Do not become voiceless when I am concerned. Mheshimiwa, you cannot afford silence while Mama Mboga and her children continue to suffer. It is not only her life at stake, but also your vote. So if not for us, do it for your own vote in 2027. We, the voters of Bahati constituency, where I come from, we are banking on you. We urge you to represent the will of your constituents in your votes. Isitoshe, the government is increasing taxes to satisfy its appetite for borrowing and loans. All this due to the amount I pay does not in any way benefit me, a taxpayer, and the amount being borrowed is not being effectively utilized to enhance effective and quality service delivery, which you seem to be happy about. Why should I repay a debt that benefited a powerful elite, feel to my detriment a Kenyan citizen? My MP, why have you forsaken us? Why have you become voiceless when and where I am concerned? Mheshimiwa, why are you silenced while Mama Mboga and her children continue to suffer? I am feeling very much affected, and this is becoming personal to me because I remember taking a few student leaders with me to go to Nakuru and urge the youth there to register as voters and vote in my MP. And right now, she's nowhere to be seen, and she's voting yes to the finance bill. I mean, allow me to be personal about it. So again, I say, if not for me, the Mwananchi, do it for your vote come 2027. Thank you.
And for the members of parliament who are here, I think for Passaris, we can give her a letter. She's also your MP. Honorable Emase,
Amanda. Yeah, so it's only me remaining and Donya.
Okay.
So Donya can collect it from Mount Monje.
Yeah.
All right, and I can take the one for me. And who's the MP in Nakuru?
Irene Joki.
Irene Joki. Yes.
So I'll give her a copy.
Yes. You're married, let me see one. Okay, come right in. And Molo, ile ya Molo, you send one to Molo.
You know, I always feel that we.
You know, I always feel that we forget that Parliament is not just 290 seats. In the 290 seats, you've got 28 women, all right? And then you've got the 47 women reps, and then you've also got the nominated, and each one of them has a vote. So when you're delivering this, I think, because this thing is coming alive in the next 2 weeks, right? Maybe you deliver it on the ground, because you're going round, but also use the pigeonholes of Parliament to deliver this, so that everybody can get their advanced copy in Parliament and internalize it. Yeah, I really want to say that this country, I really would have hoped that, you've highlighted the areas you don't want text, all right, the increments, right? If we could stay with what we passed in 2023, would we still be able to serve this government and improve on 2023? But we cannot have a government without taxation. Taxation is a must. We are in debt, we have to pay. Austerity measures, I'm half Greek. I saw what austerity measures did to my father's country. And when we were passing the Finance Bill 2023, I was also fearful of Kenya going into austerity measures. Let me tell you, the West who've lent us money, when they want their money, they are ruthless. They collapsed the economy of Greece, and you know what saved Greece? It was the European countries not wanting the euro to come down, so they put money together to save Greece. But who's going to help us? Who's going to save us when austerity measures start, when the whole continent is bleeding? Let's think about that. We've got to clear that debt and not borrow anymore and sustain ourselves and build our economy. So patriotism is going to count here. Thank you.
We will pay our debt, but allow us to pay only the debt that came to Kenyans. So a debt audit is extremely important because most of the debt never hit the CBK account, and it would be unfair.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We are happy to see most of you being here. My name is John Mushori. I'm from Bunge Mashinani Initiative, Kiambu County, and I'm here with my colleagues to go through our press release.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jerry Mwangi. I'm from Power 254. Good morning. My name is Annette Nerima with the Kenya Human Rights Commission and also part of OKOA UCHUMI.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Blandina Bobson, the Director of Programs for Oxfam, part of the OKOA UCHUMI coalition.
I'll start. Civil society organizations media statement on the Finance Bill 2024. We, the OKOA UCHUMI campaign partners and citizens from different parts of Kenya, dedicated to strengthening public participation and social accountability in the public debt process, are deeply concerned by the government's recently released estimated budget for the 2024-2025 financial year and the Finance Bill 2024. The current trajectory of rising taxes poses a dire threat to citizens' access to vital services essential for the full realization of their fundamental rights and freedoms. As staunch advocates for human rights and the interests of marginalized members of society, we express profound concern over the escalating cost of living, compounded by punitive, unattainable, and predictable tax policies. It is deeply troubling to witness significant budget reductions averaging 11% in critical sectors such as education research, social protection, disaster response, and agriculture. Meanwhile, certain ministries, departments, and agencies, within the executive are experiencing budget expansions. This imbalance not only jeopardizes the well-being of citizens, but it also undermines the government's duty to prioritize essential services that uphold the dignity and prosperity of all individuals. Whereas Article 10 of the Constitution identifies public participation as one of the fundamental principles of good governance, it is very disappointing to be invited to a tokenistic, meaningless, and exclusive public participation exercise as currently conducted by the government. It is a worrying trend that citizens' voices do not find their way into the final policies approved by Parliament, despite being invited to give their opinions. It is this very Honorable Kuria-led committee that rejected over 63% of citizens' views on the Finance Act in 2023. And once again, we are staring at an exercise that is meant to tick boxes. Further, there has been no deliberate efforts by Parliament to allocate sufficient resources to facilitate constituency-based, all-inclusive public participation to afford Kenyans from all walks of life an opportunity to share their opinions and views. Without addressing the teething problems bedeviling our public participation framework and total disregard of public opinions by the Parliament, Kenyans will continue to be taken for a ride and their rights violated with impunity.
The non-citizen-focused budget is proposed to be financed by increased taxes to Kenyan taxpayers without commensurate investment in apt service delivery. Thus, the burden of Kenyans is set to further worsen in the Finance Bill 2024 if passed into law. The Finance Bill 2024 proposes unfair, unjust, and harsh clauses which will be to the detriment of the common mwananchi. The bill is keen to impose heavy levy burdens on the common mwananchi by attacking every aspect of their lives, from the food they eat for health and spiritual communion, to the cars they use to travel either as commuters or owners, the communication sector that is a major source of social cohesion and health, and the banking sector, particularly mobile banking, that derives most economic transactions in Kenya. A Kenyan taxpayer is staring at a short, miserable life with a raft of violations from the government. Despite the government's elaborate plans to increase the tax burden, they have not reciprocated the same energy towards the fight against revenue leakages through corruption, wastage, illicit trade, and money laundering. According to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Kenya loses about 608 billion Kenya shillings. That translates to 7.8% of the country's GDP to corruption annually. The Corruption Perception Index of 2023 places Kenya at a score of 31 out of 100, which shows deterioration in the Kenya anti-corruption efforts. It is under this premise that the OKOA UCHUMI asserts that continued taxation without accountability is extortion. An attempt by the government to meet its debt obligation, some of which are odious debt and hence not legitimate and should not be a burden to the citizens. The coalition members oppose a number of the proposals that are problematic and inconsiderate of the current economic situation as follows.
Enshrining a proposal exempting KRA from the constraints of the Data Protection Act in accessing taxpayers' data. This is a flagrant violation of one's right to privacy as set out under Article 24, Section 2 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. There are high chances of surveillance for taxation purposes to be used for persecution. Proposal to remove gluten bread and unleavened bread from VAT while also removing VAT zero rating on the supply of ordinary bread, milk, cream, and all inputs and raw materials produced locally and imported. This is bound to increase these items' costs, and the majority will not be able to afford them. This will be an abuse of government's duty to ensure that food is available and accessible. A clear violation of the rights to food. Proposal to introduce a tax on motor vehicle at 2.5% of the value of the vehicle. The implication of this is that it is likely to increase the tax burden of citizens. This tax is problematic because it is not progressive in nature, because the minimum tax payable will be shillings 5,000. Hence, owners whose cars are less than 200,000 Kenya shillings will pay more than the 2.5% of the value of the vehicles. On the other hand, those whose vehicles are more than 4 million Kenya shillings will pay a lower tax rate, since this tax is capped at 100,000. This tax is unjust and burdensome to the middle and low income earners. The proposal to empower KRA to require taxpayers to integrate e-TINs. Failure to comply with this requirement will result in a monthly penalty of not exceeding 2 million Kenya shillings. This will mainly target and hurt small businesses, since large businesses are already integrated within the KRA systems. The proposal to increase the import declaration fee from 2.5% to 3%, which will increase the cost of imported goods. The proposal to increase the excise on telephone and internet data services. This comes at a time when the government declared its support for the digital world. Imposing such a tax will hinder many from accessing information purposes such as education and current affairs, and will also impact the ease of communication.
Thank you, appeal from my colleague. We wish to highlight and bring to attention the negative effect that the budget estimate for the 2024-2025 financial year and the Finance Bill 2024 will have on public service delivery and the economy at large. The protests on some proposal of the Finance Bill 2024 are grounds to show that Kenyans can shape the physical discourse in our country and provide for in our Public Finance Management Act 2012. And the Constitution of Kenya. We desire to see a country where accountability is highly valued and where talks of physical consolidation are led by the executive and the legislature in the manner that is dignified, justified, and takes into account the welfare of an ordinary Kenyan taxpayer. The government should explore alternative measures to meet its revenue collection and stop overtaxing citizens and businesses. We urge members of parliament to reject the proposal that seek to overtax the already suffering Kenyans. Efforts should also be directed to tax compliance on the existing tax and a pursuit for accountability for all revenue collected. Further, the government must demonstrate by deed that is committed to fight corruption, wastage, and illicit financial flows. Based on this, OKOA UCHUMI will continue amplifying their proposal as submitted to Parliament by the people. Additionally, the campaign will mobilize all Kenyan citizens to inform their members of Parliament on their stand on the Finance Bill 2024. I'll go through the undersigned OKOA UCHUMI campaign members. Number 1 is Action Aid International Kenya, African Forum and Network on Debt and Development, Amnesty International Kenya, Bunge Mashinani Initiative and Bunge Mashinani School of Governance, Center for Physical Affairs, Center for Economic Governance, Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance, Christian Aid Kenya, Community Advocacy and Awareness Trust, ESCHR Rights, East African Tax and Governance Network, Fight Inequality Alliance Kenya, IBON Africa, Institute of Public Finance, International Budget Partnership Kenya, Inuka Kenya Nisisi, Katiba Institute, Kenya Human Rights Commission, Muslim for Human Rights, National Democratic Institution, National Taxpayer Association, OKOA Mombasa, Oxfam Kenya, Power 254, Remus Housing, Social Justice Centers, the Hummingbird Grassroots Kenya, the Institute for Social Accountability, the Kenya section of the International Commission of Jurists and Transparency International Kenya, and last, Kwaweza East Africa. Asanteni sana.